This is a very important video because this first eclipse in 2026 is going to have a lot of impact on the life on this planet. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, Vedic Living. Today we are going to talk about the eclipse that's coming up in February 17th, 2026. And as you know, I love making these eclipse videos because eclipses have so much impact on everything we encounter here on this planet. And, even in general, in our personal lives, they have so much impact. So I'll be talking in detail about this eclipse. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is that this eclipse on Feb 17th, it is happening in the nakshatra called Dhanishta. Now, as you already know, I use Vedic Sidereal Astrology calculations. So this is very different from Western tropical calculations. So everything is based on nakshatras and the exact positions of the planets in the sky as it is today. So this is not going to be similar to any of the tropical astrology predictions that you've heard about. It is going to be Vedic sidereal. Okay. So while I'm talking about these eclipses and the degrees and the sensitive degrees in the sky, if you want to know, if you're curious, is there anything like this going on in my chart? Do I have any planets at these degrees? Make sure that you go to my website, www.vedic-living.com, and use the free chart calculator there. And you'll be able to pull up your chart and see if you have any planets in those signs or those degrees, because this is going to be very important. When you have planets in those placements, the eclipse has more impact on you. But otherwise, it'll be more of a generic impact in the surrounding kind of your environment. Okay. Now, I've talked about this many times in the past because I make the eclipse videos every year. But in case you're new to this channel, I want to take some time to explain what an eclipse is. An eclipse happens anytime the sun and the moon come into close conjunction or opposition in the sky. Plus, that's not enough, because if the sun and moon are in conjunction or opposition, it can also be just a new moon or a full moon. In addition to that, we want the nodes, Rahu and Ketu, the south node and the north node, to be close with the sun and the moon. So that's when an eclipse happens. And eclipses usually happen twice a year. Very rarely they can happen more than twice a year. And I'll explain that later in a different video, because certain times in history that it has happened more than 2 times. That's actually very telling that that year is going to be dramatic and impactful to human life. But typically it happens twice a year. And every time the sun and the moon come in conjunction and they come together with Rahu, that's an eclipse. And then 6 months later, when the sun is with Ketu, that's going to be the second eclipse. So our first eclipse this year is Feb 17th, 2026, and we will be looking at the chart and making some very strong predictions. And the second eclipse is going to be in August of this year. So we'll have 2 eclipses. Now, before we go any further, since I've already talked to you about my website and the free chart calculator, I want to remind you that I have a brand new newsletter starting this year. A lot of very practical information, practical tips. I give you the predictions for the whole month as it could apply to you personally, to make sure that you make the best use of the transits that are going on in the sky. This is a brand new newsletter. I asked all of you for feedback, so thank you to everybody who responded overwhelmingly to the feedback questionnaire, and I have incorporated everything that you have asked for. And I've noticed that the signups for the newsletter has gone up tremendously. So while you're on my website, sign up for my free newsletter. It's absolutely free. It'll be delivered to your inbox at the end of every month with predictions for the upcoming month. So this is one important point. The second important point, as you already know, I do have my 2026 world prediction video up for sale on my website as of 3 months ago. It is a full 4 to 5 hour prediction video. It has a lot of information already. 2 or 3 predictions have come true that I have made. I talked about Venezuela, and that came true within a span of like a 2 day gap. So the date that I said within 2 days was the event in Venezuela. And I also had the chart of Nicolas Maduro in my predictions, and I talked very specifically about the dates that are going to be impactful for him. That came true as well. There are some dates that I called out for him in February and March, which we'll wait and see if that comes out. But I'm pretty sure that when you watch this video, you're going to be like, "Wow, this is exact." And I predicted the oil related events with Saturn and Neptune together in Pisces. And as you can see already, we are seeing a lot of discussions around oil, petroleum, rare earth metals, and oil tankers are being seized. I specifically mentioned that in the month of January, there's going to be oil related incidents in the ocean, in the sea, because Saturn and Neptune rules oil. They come into conjunction in Pisces, which rules the sea, the ocean. And now, as you can see, oil tankers are being seized. So that was the second prediction that came out true.
Let's look at a quick snippet of the portion of the 2026 World Predictions video where I talked about Nicolas Maduro capture.
And you can see the same thing echoed in the leaders chart as well. In January, February, and March, major tumultuous transits going on here. Beginning with January, transiting Mars and Pluto will conjunct right here on his natal Ketu in the 8th house of endings, difficulties, death, threats, violence, things like that. So he has to be very careful in the month of January. And then when we go into February, it still doesn't stop in January, because in February, Mars will transit his natal Saturn. And of course, I talked about the eclipse in that video too in detail. So that's the other thing I wanted to mention. That being said, now we're going to go and look at the predictions for this Feb 17th eclipse. And we're going to talk in detail about everything that this is going to come with. Okay, here we are with the eclipse for Feb 17th. And as I mentioned, it's Feb 17th, 2026. And it's about 7 a.m. In Eastern Time in the United States. You can see the sun and moon are together. That's the 4-degree mark that I was calling out. And they are together with the nodes Rahu and Ketu. So that's the formula for an eclipse, as we already talked about it. Now, this eclipse, it is a Rahu kind of eclipse. So every 6 months. So this is the first one with Rahu. In 6 months from now, the next eclipse will be with Ketu. So that'll have a completely different energy and different meaning. First thing I want to mention, an eclipse is a shadow. So every time there's an eclipse, that 6-month period that follows that eclipse is going to have things that come out from the dark into the open light. So it's like dark to light kind of energy. So this is why eclipses usually have a lot of intense energy where truth is exposed. There'll be a lot of, things that are coming out that were hidden in the past. And 4-degree of Aquarius, as you can see, the nakshatra is Dhanishta. Dhanishta is ruled by Mars, which means that this eclipse will have the energy of Mars within it, which is violence, fights, problems with, disagreements. Mars can also indicate a lot of new inventions and discoveries, which we'll talk about. But before we go into the details of the predictions, I want to talk about this eclipse path. The eclipse path is near Antarctica. So in the southern hemisphere. So the main impact will be seen around South America, South Africa, Australia, maybe New Zealand, and there'll be more events around these areas. Although the entire world is affected in one way or another, the most intense energy path is near that area in the southern hemisphere. Now, since it is ruled by Mars, this is a very powerful eclipse because there'll be a lot of conflicts. People are divided. People are triggered more by their surroundings. Like in the news, you will see a lot of contention and anger, especially from news anchors. I've seen that, but it's just that Martian energy, because the other thing that I see here with the sun and moon coming together in Dhanishta is that Mars is exalted at the same time, which means Mars is incredibly powerful at this time. And it is sitting with Pluto, as you can see. Mars is with Pluto and Mars is exalted. So this is very important to kind of notice here, because this could mean that there is some kind of world leadership that is going through change. A ruler of a country or leader of a country can be asked to step down, or they can be taken out of power, which already has happened with Venezuela. But I do think going into the eclipse season, this energy is intensified. And when I did my 2026 world predictions, I also called out the countries where this degree is activated. So you can see that as to which countries are specifically activated, and which I can't talk about on YouTube because of problems with my video being taken down. So I don't want to do that. But if you buy my predictions, you will be able to see the countries and leaders affected by these degrees. But overall, you will see that there's going to be leadership concerns around the world. People are going to be talking about how their countries are not impactful. They are upset, they're triggered, there's frustration, there's anger, there's violence. All those kind of things can happen during this eclipse because of this conjunction right here, added to the fact that the sun and moon are together in Dhanishta, which is ruled by Mars. So you see how this is all connecting. Now, another thing I noticed is that Uranus is sitting at 3 degrees of Taurus, which is typically indicative of Earth changes, Earth events. There can be unexpected Earth events. Uranus rules unexpected and unpredictable events, volcanic activity. The weather is unpredictable, maybe storms and things like that. Saturn is also aspecting Uranus from here, from Pisces. So that's another reason why these earth changes and earth events are more pronounced during this period. And when I say during this period, it's that period not only the eclipse date itself. Don't expect something to happen on the date of the eclipse. It usually happens around that time. And then the 6-month period that's after it, because it's eclipse to eclipse, these energies. Now, another thing to also notice, if I know you already saw this, is that this Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 6 degrees, exact conjunction, very important. Neptune rules oil, rare earth, anything that's below the earth. And you can see in the world today how in the months of January to March, we have been seeing so many discussions since the beginning of the year around oil and petroleum and fossil fuels and rare earth minerals. Anything that has to do with Venezuela and Greenland and any other things around the world, you will see these discussions about oil, because Neptune rules oil, and Saturn, the karmic master of the zodiac, is coming in close conjunction with Neptune. So these things are being exposed. People are talking about it. I spoke at length in my 2026 world predictions video about this particular conjunction, and like I said, the prediction about oil tankers being seized, because see, Neptune rules oil and Pisces is the water, the ocean. So there is a connection there. So there's, events around oil and oil related events around water, right? And all of these discussions now that you hear in the news is happening because of this conjunction that's going on in Pisces. The stock market, I think, will do well during this eclipse season. And let me tell you why. Because Venus is sitting with Rahu exact at 14 degrees, another exact conjunction. This eclipse is really intense because there are so many exact conjunctions going on. Venus and Rahu are together, and Jupiter is aspecting this. So these are all benefics. They are expansion related aspects, which means that, this is a very wealth producing time frame. I think the stock market will do well. I think that, after the eclipse season, you're going to see that around the month of March and so on. And I also think that people can make wealth and money during this period. So this is actually a very good time for that. Um, one more thing that I wanted to mention during this eclipse is that while we are looking at all of these incidents going on, there is another thing that is going on. Mercury is sitting in Aquarius and it is fully aspected by Jupiter, another almost close conjunction, 22 degrees and 21 degrees. And Mercury itself rules media, news, and things that have to do with that. Now, so many groundbreaking inventions are going to come out at this time. You can see Shatabhishek Nakshatra is also very strong. So there's going to be a lot of things that happen around health and healing and disclosure. Shatabhishek Nakshatra is called the Sky Watcher. So there's going to be UFO related disclosures, outer space, talk about space travel. Lots of truths are being revealed. Shatabhishek rules health and healing. So there is a lot of talk about health and healing modalities which are coming out now into the open, which is actually a positive thing with Mercury and Jupiter aspect. The only thing I would kind of warn about this period is that Mercury Rahu can sometimes bring about fake news. So when you watch the news and when you hear what they're talking about in the news, there's going to be things that you should take with a pinch of salt. Okay, it can be extremely exaggerated and designed to trigger your Mars. Remember, Mars is exalted at this time, so you could be just triggered by it because so anything that you hear about in the news and media and all that, kind of do your due diligence, do your own research before you believe it. Okay. So that's the main predictions I have for this eclipse season. And I'm going to make another video after this regarding the eclipse predictions for all 12 signs. So you know how this is going to impact your chart, personally. And with that being said, I'm going to close because that video about the 12 signs is going to be a very long one. And I hope it gives you a lot of insight into your chart. But remember that this eclipse season is very intense. And what I want to leave you with is that no matter what the energies in the sky, no matter what the transits that are going on, your peace of mind is still under your control. So you can decide to use this for your best, highest growth, highest spiritual evolution. And remember that everything that's happening in the world is happening for a reason. There is something there's a grand design here. There is a divine purpose here. And, keep your own center grounded and make sure that you're not just impulsively reacting to things around you. You want to take things and research it and make sure that you're seeing everything in the true light, especially with Neptune and Uranus and Pluto involved. Things can be deceiving sometimes and misleading. So make sure you're doing your research. And with that being said, I'll see you in my next video where I talk about the 12 signs and give you specific predictions. Until that time, thank you so much for watching and supporting me, and namaste.